Okay. So how's it going? Welcome back. So far this chapter's been mostly having to do with area. Any questions on these area formulas so far? The other day we talked about area of a rhombus. So remember, the area of a rhombus is just 1/2 d1 times d2. No questions? Okay. So today we're going to talk about circles. So we're going to talk about a few things as they relate to circles. Some review, some new. So the first thing is area of a circle. Area of a circle is pi r squared. That's something you should definitely remember from your past. Remember, r represents the radius of the circle. That's just the distance from the center to the edge of the circle. That's the radius. Okay. In addition to this, circumference of a circle is like the perimeter length, and this is 2 pi r. Or equivalently, pi times diameter, right? Because 2r is the same thing as diameter. We have here 2r, which is equal to d. So sometimes they write it as 2 pi r, sometimes they write it as pi times diameter. It's the same formula. Okay? So if I have a circle, right, this, and let's say the radius is 5 inches. Okay, then the area would be pi r squared, pi times 5 squared, or 25 pi square inches. And the circumference would be 2 pi r, 2 pi times 5, which is 10 pi. What would be the units for circumference? Yeah, just inches, because it's just length, right? So circumference units are the same as whatever the radius units are, or whatever the diameter units are. Area units are always a unit squared, okay? So this would just be inches. Okay, and pay attention, sometimes they'll say, put your answer in terms of pi, which is what I did here. This is the exact answer. And sometimes they'll say, round your answer to the nearest tenth or something like that. So that's just using your calculator. You can use decimals or whatever. But in this case, if I had 25 pi, there's a pi button right here on these calculators. So 25 pi would be 78.5. So that would be the approximated answer here, 78.5 square inches. And if I wanted to approximate 10 pi, that's no big deal either. 10 pi is 31.4 inches. Now, sometimes people get these two formulas confused, area and circumference. I just remember them, which is which, because I just remember that since area uses square units, it's also the formula that has the radius squared. That's kind of the way I keep it straight in my brain, but you can remember any way you want. Trying to remember, somebody showed me a way to do this one time, like a mnemonic device. Oh, okay, I remember now. So we have A equals pi r squared, C equals pi d. So So a student one time taught me that they remembered it as cherry pies are delicious and apple pies are too. But the problem with that is if you get the formulas confused, then you might just think it's apple pies are delicious and cherry pies are too. So yeah, I guess that works, but it's easy to mix up. So okay, you can use notes anyway. So, but this is definitely something you should have memorized. Okay, so sometimes they'll give you problems where they might give you the area and ask you to find the circumference, or they might give you the circumference and ask you to find the area. Okay, so like for example, instead of giving you the radius or the diameter, so for example, they might say a circle's circumference is 16 pi centimeters. Find the circle's area. So all you would have to do is just apply the formulas, right? So they're telling you the circumference is 16 pi. Well, we know the circumference formula is 2 pi r. So 2 pi r equals 16 pi. This is like a two-part problem. We have to first figure out what the radius is, then use that radius in the area formula. So in this case, if we're trying to solve for r, you just divide by 2 pi. You want to divide by all the other stuff. So this ends up giving you r equals 8, right? Because the pi and the pi cancel. So then if we know r equals 8, then the area is pi r squared. Pi times 8 squared, which is 64 pi square centimeters. And that's the answer. Right? Now, if it happened to be that maybe they give you a circumference that's not an even number or something like that, that's okay. Like if they said the circumference is like 7 pi feet, find the area. It's the same type of problem, you just have to deal with decimals. Okay, so you'd say 2 pi r equals 7 pi. Divide by 2 pi. So this time you can see, if you take 7 pi divided by 2 pi, you get 7 halves, or 3.5. Not ideal, but it's not that bad because you have a calculator anyway. So then the area would be pi times 3.5 squared. That's it. So then if they said put your answer in terms of pi, you just square the 3.5 and that's it. So if I take 3.5 squared, I get 12.25. So this answer is going to be 12.25 pi square feet. Okay? Or they might give you a problem where the reverse information is given. Maybe they give you the area and ask you to find the circumference. It's the same deal, right? So if they said the area is 16 pi square yards, find circumference. It's the same process, except this time they're giving us the area. So they're giving us pi r squared. So we would say pi r squared equals 16 pi. How do you solve for r here? Yeah, first divide by pi. That gets rid of both the pi's. Then what can you do? Yeah, square root both sides. R is 4. So then circumference is 2 pi r. 2 pi times 4. 8 pi. What would the units be here? yards. Does that make sense? Okay, there's one other thing I want to go over today. The reason why I'm doing like several little topics today is because I'm not going to be here tomorrow. Sorry. So, so I'm trying to cover enough information so you can do today's homework and also tomorrow's homework. Getting my second COVID shot.
Oh.
I'll be bulletproof. All
We
right.
don't know about booster.
What's that?
Well, we don't know about booster.
That's true. All right. So, so the next thing I want to talk about then is area of a sector. Okay, a sector is just a piece of a circle, like a slice of pie. That's a sector. Okay, this is just a piece. Oh, that really wrong. Piece of a circle, which includes two radii. That's the plural for radius, two radii, and an arc. So it would look like a slice of pie. Radius, another radius, and then an arc between them. So if you think about how you might calculate the area of a sector, you could probably figure it out with a little bit of thought. Like if I have, suppose I have a sector that's 90 degrees. Okay, so let's say it's 90-degree sector. And let's suppose that the radius of the circle that this sector came from is like 6 inches. Each of those radii are 6 inches. How might you calculate the area of this sector?
Maybe like multiply like 6 by 6 and then do something with the other.
Okay, so I think you're thinking like, think of it as like a rectangle that's like missing some stuff. That's a way you could do it. There's a little bit easier way though. Yeah.
That's the quarter of a circle. So one of the 6s is the radius of it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. I'm thinking this is actually just 1/4 of an entire circle, right? So this area would be 1/4 of pi r squared, pi times 6 squared, right? This would be 1/4 of 36 pi. So 1/4 of 36 would be 9 pi square inches. What if it was, instead of a 90-degree sector, what if it was like a 60-degree sector? What if it was something like this?
Will those be numbers like that?
Sure. Yeah, they'll give you the degree measure of this arc of the sector. Okay, so if this is 60, and let's say this was like 4 centimeters and 4 centimeters. How would I calculate that area? Yeah.
That would be 1/3 pi times 4 squared.
Not 1/3.
Yeah, circle is 360.
Yeah, circle's 360. So what is 60 out of that?
1/3. Oh, wait. 1/6.
1/6, right? If you take 6 times 60, you get 360, right? So this is like 1/6 of the circle. The area here would be 1/6 of pi r squared. This is 1/6 of 16 pi. 16 and 6, it's not evenly divisible, but I could simplify it a little bit. It would be like, I could cut them in half, it would be 8/3. 8/3 pi would be the exact area of that sector, and this would be centimeters squared. So the hard part here is like coming up with this fractional part. But if you think about it, basically all we're going to do is we're just going to figure out what fraction of the entire circle is that angle. So you could just take like 60 divided by 360. Up here we could have taken 90 divided by 360 to get that fraction that goes in front, right? So in general, that would work. Like if I have any arc, so this is just a generic representation of any arc. If you know the measure of this angle, let's just say it's A, and you know this is R, then the area is just going to be A over 360 times pi r squared. Right? And then sometimes that fraction will simplify, like 60 over 360 is 1/6, or 90 over 360 is 1/4. Sometimes maybe it won't. Maybe it's like an odd number of degrees or whatever that doesn't go evenly into 360. That's okay. You could just use a calculator or whatever you need to do, okay? So like, for example, suppose I had a weird angle measure, like, let's suppose it was like, this was like 41 degrees or something weird like that. And let's say these radii were weird, like 2.7 millimeters. 2.7 millimeters. Okay, same exact process. The area would be 41 3/60ths. That's the percentage of the circle that we're including here. 41 3/60ths times pi r squared. Pi times 2.7 squared. So they might say round your answer to the nearest hundredth or something like that. We can do this easily on the calculator. It's just parentheses 41 3/60ths times pi times 2.7 squared. And that's it, equals. So if this was the nearest hundredth, you'd say 2.61 is the area here. 2.61 square millimeters. Does that make sense? So they're going to give you the angle measure every time, and they're going to give you the radius every time. And you just apply this formula. It's just the angle measure divided by 360 times pi r squared. Okay? So there's actually two different homeworks on Delta Math. You don't have to do them both tonight. You can do some of it in class tomorrow. This is all you're going to have to do in class tomorrow is just work on homework. So if you want to save it for then, I totally get it. That's perfectly fine. If you want to get it all done tonight and then do other work tomorrow, that's fine too. I don't really care. But the homeworks are just calculating the area of a circle, either in terms of pi or by rounding. Problems where they give you the circumference and ask you to find the area, or vice versa. They give you the area and ask you to find the circumference. And then calculating the area of a sector like this. Okay? Any questions about that? All right.